So, man, if you have not listened to part 1 of this, you need to go back and listen to part 1.
Yeah,
if nothing else, you can fast forward to the first 7 minutes of Aaron rambling, and then you can get to Luke's story, which everybody needs to hear. So go back and listen to that, and then come back and listen to this one, because in this episode we're going to get into some of the tangibles. How do we actually help someone struggling with depression? So Luke, Executive Director of Depression to Extinction, is here again to kind of unwind this for us, take us through some of the tools that they've put together, that they use, they champion, and what they're doing. So I think everyone's going to find this super useful. And so before we, I guess, do that, we wanted to, well, let's start with that. Like, what the go-to tool here that we're using? Right. What is it exactly? Describe this.
Yeah, so it's called the check-in process, and I do want to start by saying, in the last podcast I kind of mentioned, this is like practice. So a lot of our tool, like this main tool, and some of the other stuff that we do in our journal and things like that, a lot of it is in kind of the prevention space. And again, we talked about it in the last podcast, and you should go listen to that. So I won't speak to it anymore, but. The check-in process itself, we have this phrase, and I'm rocking on my shirt. It says, "Be real, check-in," and there's kind of an acronym, and it's a fun kind of thing that we like to talk about prior to talking about how we feel. But the idea is that we want to set this space. So we are about to do a check-in. We are about to dive into it to really show everybody what it's like. But we want to set the space by being real. And how we look at that is by being respectful. So the R stands for respect, having respect for everybody around you, having respect for yourself, honoring the fact that, we do have emotions and we're about to talk about them, and someone else may talk about theirs, so I'm not going to judge them. Yeah. We want to have empathy. And empathy, like, I feel like people think it's just like you either have it or you don't, and I think that's BS. Like, we can learn it. For sure. It's really just learning how to love on somebody and walk with them through whatever they're going through. I like to say just get down in the muck with somebody, right? The A stands for being authentic, and so we were kind of joking about it earlier that we were going to, not be real about how we're feeling. We got to be authentic. Like, if the next generation really is going to benefit from any of this, we as the leaders have to be authentic about what we're going through and who we are. And finally, the L, loving. Like, we couldn't love, what am I trying to say there? We couldn't love more. We couldn't love more. We can love more, always, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. More room for the love.
More room for the love. Thank you. So, again, setting the space, we want to just kind of honor everybody here. When we go through the check-in process, it is very simple. We want this to be accessible for everybody. We do want this to be available just right on the go as you're going along your day. There are 10 core emotions that we've kind of identified. And we will go through each one individually, and you will rate it on a scale from 1, not feeling a lot of it, to 10, I'm feeling this all the way. By the time we get to the 10th emotion, typically in a longer kind of form check-in, we'll ask, was there anything else that you wanted to share? And that's the premise, the overview.
You explained it beautifully.
Awesome.
I have a feeling that we are totally going to screw this up.
You can't screw it up.
Challenge accepted.
And what those listening and watching don't know is that prior to this episode, we had to vote on who we felt would do the check-in process.
And Joe lost, so Joe's going.
And Aaron, we all said Aaron was the most screwed up. He needs it the most.
No.
I think
the highest chance that someone will cry, Aaron Alba.
Aaron
That's
Alba.
so true.
I almost cried when you said the affirmation thing.
I love it.
Aaron's in.
Beautiful.
Aaron's like, I just want them to say I'm
So
just tell me,
Aaron,
Luke.
we're gonna go.
Oh, God.
We're gonna go for it.
it.
We're diving right
Love
in
it.
without any introduction. We're diving. Yeah, if you can hold his in, that'd be great.
Affirmation.
So he's holding Tyler's hand just in case. For everybody listening and just for us in this room, there's no crosstalk. We're not going to talk as Aaron is going through this. This is your space to do whatever you want with it, to a certain extent, because we're on a podcast.
Yeah.
But this is your space, right? We're going to honor you, right? The whole being real thing, that's for you, and that's for what you're going to share. All right?
Trying to not.
Yes.
This is a safe
I'm
spot.
trying to-
I will not tell.
Look, this is the thing.
I won't tell
safe.
anyone
This
what you
is a
said
completely
here.
safe space, right?
It's safe, and I'm not going to say a word, but I'm going to look at you.
But
Thank you.
Right.
So no cross radio.
No cross radio. Turn their mics off. And we're gonna just be here. Okay.
You and 7 million listeners.
You and 7 million
Praise
listeners.
God.
I'm not gonna really comment. I'm gonna stick to neutral answers. So you,
Cool.
if I say anything,
You're
just-
really intimidating.
right. We're. Is it really?
No.
That's
I would like to.
We don't want to be intimidated. So
Intimidation.
No,
thing, 10.
you're
Here's the
good.
thing.
You're
Here's the
good.
thing.
You're
Look,
good.
I'm not, and the reason behind that is I'm not gonna be like, oh, dude, what you just shared was awesome,
For
and then
sure.
Tyler's checking in, he shares the same thing in his life, and I'm just like, okay, right? Because we don't want to compare.
Yeah, I'm better than you.
Yeah.
My junk is
We don't want to. We don't want to compare. So it's a pretty simple thing. There's not much to that. I feel like if I talk anymore, we're gonna just go down a black hole. So
You just got to start it.
I want you, Aaron, and everybody else to be quiet. I want you to just take a breath in this moment. If you need to close your eyes, go for it. Just try to get centered, and let me know when you're ready.
Cool. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Moneyball helped. I saw a picture of it, and that inspired me.
Amazing.
Not a joke. It really did. It's a great.
That's
movie.
awesome.
You should go watch
That's
it.
awesome. All right. So, Aaron, in this present moment, we'll start with anger, the feeling of angry. Where do you feel that on a scale from 1 to 10?
In life, in general.
Right now in this moment.
Oh,
so we focus
you
on
said
this
that.
moment. Yeah.
Like a 0? Is that applicable?
We stay with 1, but 0 is fine.
I'll do 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like maybe I am angry. No,
well,
I'm
typically we leave some awkward silence just because it feels awkward, but maybe there's something there.
not. Intimacy is awkward, so I understand.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna look you right in the eye. There's usually not this much talking during a check-in on my
Okay.
part. All right. So, Aaron, in this present moment, where do you feel the emotion of fear?
Fear. Probably 6. I think something I say a lot to my youth group, which I work at a church with and try to do this kind of conversation a lot,
Yeah.
is like step into fear and like step out of like stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like in addition to that is like intimacy is weird. And I think like something we talked about in the last podcast, which you go listen to, is like if you don't grow up eating super healthy, and then when you get in your 20s and someone hands you like a piece of celery, you're like, this is gross, I don't want to eat this. So I think for me, like talking about my feelings is something that I do a lot, especially with people at this table.
Yeah.
But like not just rambling, but like intentionally unpacking the suitcase is something that I don't do a lot. So that kind of freaks me out sometimes.
Respect that. Yeah. So worry is the next emotion, and where would you feel that on a scale from 1 to 10?
Like a 4, 3, 3.5.
Yeah.
Just thinking about like the next couple weeks of like work and just like hanging out with students and students going back to school and like trying to find time to like spend time with them, but also like get things done that I need to get done without being lackadaisical.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun word.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So next on the list here is pain on a scale from 1 to 10, sometimes sadness too.
Probably 1.
Yeah.
I think a word I've told my youth group and a lot of teens I've experienced in terms of like whatever their day-to-day lives I've tried to impart in them is like when you do life correctly and like you commit to a community and surround yourself with like mentors and people to like combat what you think in a loving and healthy way. Like I think freedom comes from that.
Yeah.
And like I feel a lot of fear and a lot of frustration with certain things, but I don't think pain is something I live with like at all, almost at all anymore. Yeah. Especially the people at this table have helped me out a lot with that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So now we'll move into the feeling of joy in this present moment.
Probably a 6. And I think joy is a response a lot of the time and also a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of this stuff freaks me out. So I'll probably feel a lot of joy on the drive home after this conversation. But in the moment, it's just kind of, it's like a teeter-totter.
Yeah, honor that. Thank you. So next, we have passion in this present moment.
Probably like a 10.
Yeah.
No, I think like Joe and Zach and Tyler, we had a group text, and they told me about the podcast night like a month ago.
Yeah.
And I brought it up with Zach today or yesterday, and he's like, oh, you're going to that? And I was like, oh man, I was like, maybe I wasn't invited. But no, all jokes aside, like, this is what I love to do, which is talk about my feelings and talk about healthy practices of combating like emptiness and loneliness and combating pain.
Yeah.
And so like this exact conversation is one of my like top 5 passions probably I'll ever have. So yeah, I love this.
Yeah, I can see that. Thank you. So next up, we have the emotion of love on 1 to 10.
7. I think love and passion can be tied sometimes. And so my love bar is really low a lot of the time with a lot of things. I just get really passionate about spending time with people. But I think loving people I'm sometimes not the best at, like intentionally. And so in a safe space like this to like work out those passions and to walk that out through a mic or through a camera with people I'm comfortable with, the passion raises, and I think by proxy the love raises.
Yeah. All right. This is one of my favorites.
Oh no.
Gratitude on a scale from 1 to 10.
10.
And what's something you're grateful for in this moment?
The people at this table is just because like I have a lot of ebbs and flows the past 5 years of living here. And I think something I told my hairstylist today, I got a haircut, is like you take for granted family, and sometimes when that's missing, you put other people in that space that maybe shouldn't be there. Not in a bad way as commentary on the people. It's just family's family. And so I'm just really grateful for the people at this table that I tried to like put in a box and be like, you replace my family, but then realizing it's like, no, like you're just like the best of friends that I could have ever asked for. And I do have a family, and I'm grateful because I'm going back home next week to spend time with them. And that's one of those, is like, I'm grateful for them. And I'm grateful for the people being put in the right boxes, and the boundaries of relationships being necessarily like in place so I can love correctly.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right, so 2 more here.
Oh no.
The next one is the emotion or the feeling of shame on a scale from 1 to 10.
4. Yeah. I think there's always like that bar of like enough, kind of like you're talking about. And for a long time I've failed at things. Zach and I had a great conversation today where I was saying like I'm fighting for a perception of being good enough amongst people at this table, especially people that like I can honestly say I don't care what like 98% of people think. And I've worked this conversation out with Tyler especially, and I think what I came down to it is, but I care a million times about those 2%. And so some of those 2% are at like this table as well. And I was talking to Zach today about like, I feel like sometimes the things that I do incorrectly from years ago are still present in perceptions now with people that I really care about. And it's like, no, like I am trying. No, I am administrative. No, I do care. No, I do have empathy. Like, no, like I will get the job done. No, I will do this.
Yeah.
So I think there's a shame attached to like mistakes from years past.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I love you.
Love you too, Aaron.
Thank you.
So we'll end here with guilt on a scale from 1 to 10.
Like a 3.5 or 4. Sorry, Joe. No, but I don't know. I think like once you have freedom from pain and freedom from like a lot of shame, 'cause I think they're all kind of nestled together in some landmine that you keep stepping on. You know, like stomping. You're like, please blow up. Please make me feel nothing. Or please, like, just let this all be over. I think I have a lot of freedom from a lot of things I've lived through. And I think the only guilt things I have is like, it's the opposite of, it's the other side of the coin for shame, where it's like, I feel shameful from the things I've made mistakes in the past, and I feel guilt from the mistakes I'm currently making. Or it's like if I spend too much money or I spend too much time on myself when I could have been spending time with like a kid that I could be mentoring, or spend time with people that I'm friends with that I don't talk to but once a month. Or so yeah.
Thank you for diving into all that.
For sure, man.
Normally in the check-in process, we do leave a little space to share anything else. You ended up sharing a lot, which was awesome. Just for the sake of this podcast and the time we have. Do we have enough time?
Good.
We have time. All right. Well, is there anything else that came up for you, or anything else deeper on the emotions that you just want to share? Your story really does matter here.
Yeah.
And we want to honor it.
My thought process would be like imparting on any listener or myself as well, as like you're good, you know what I mean? And like I remember an ex-girlfriend told me once, she was like, you're a really good person, and I was like, don't say that. And so I think going over all these, like in retrospect, like I think Cooley's eye versus me, and there's this public perception of you, or how you view yourself, or how you think people view you, and through all this kind of, I think comes to the end is like, oh, I am doing okay. Like, oh, I am, like, life is great, and there is like freedom lasts. No, joy is something that is a lifestyle. Like, oh, I'm not sitting crying, and like, oh, I do get out of bed every day, or I do like jump at the chance to mentor teens, and I don't know. I think that's it. Is like you're a lot better than you think you are, and I'm a lot better than I thought I was like 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So we like to end this process with an affirmation statement, which was a good tee up from what you were just talking about. So, again, something that's personal to you, it's present, and it's positive, and we will all affirm you.
I don't like this one because I don't want to cry. Probably just like, I'm okay.
Yes, you are okay. So we all affirm. You guys can speak.
Do we do it in unison? Or
yeah. We'll go a second time. So say it a second time.
I'm okay.
Yes, you are okay. And one more time.
I'm okay.
Yes, you are okay.
More than okay, Aaron.
Oh, no.
We love you, Aaron.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks so much for doing that.
Wow, that was really cool because I didn't cry. The last one almost got me.
We're not done yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
thank you for doing that. For the sake, we've got a lot of time.
It's all good.
So I think one of the next things that we could do to kind of break some of this down is maybe just share like what you took away, because I know for me to watch that was something special. I'm thinking through a lot right now.
And so this is just so everyone's listening. Like this is we all kind of know this is an open process. Like normally in these kind of environments, we would ask people to like say, you know, hey, are you okay if I comment on what you checked in on? Obviously, you just checked in on a podcast, right? So it's okay. But it would be really interesting to see like each one of you guys, like how did that feel watching it, and for you, how did it feel just going through it?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to start, or am I going to end that?
So I'll kind of start and just talk to you, Luke. It was like you did nothing and you did everything all at the same time. Yeah. Like it was very, very simple. I honor that. I respect that. I hear you. I see you. But you didn't have to like break down his issues or dive in deep. It was very, very simple at the core.
You didn't have to have all of the answers.
Yeah, it's something you could do at the dinner table or driving in a car. Like this is something that I'm trying to think, how do I create this space in my life with the people that are most important to me?
And that's the point. Like we don't want it to be the deep dive, but we want it to be the entry level into the deep dive, so that the deep dive doesn't feel like a deep dive, and as scary as it is. Quick note, you mentioned your hairstylist. I used to be a barber for like a year, and I can't tell you how many personal relationships I built just because of this kind of conversation. Because the number one issue, going back to our other podcast, is I don't think people actually feel heard, and that's all people want to feel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I got a question then, and I've actually gotten information for you after this because kind of what you already do in life. How do you feel? What would be your advice for anyone who's listening in and says, I really dig that. I want to do that, but I also know I'm going to either I or my friend is going to diffuse that with humor. Yeah. The awkward silence. We won't get through the awkward silence. He's going to look me in the eye, and I'm going to crack up laughing, and it's all downhill from there as we start joking about emotions and feelings, and instead of actually doing this because it's hard.
Yeah.
How do they get past that? What's any advice for how you've done that well?
Well, initially, the two things that come to my brain, one is that you can also just do it by yourself. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's as powerful one-on-one or in a group, but you can do it by yourself. We have a journal. You can buy it online. It actually leads you through each one of the motions a little bit more, so you get a better understanding. But then there's a space right there, and you can write it. You can circle the number and write what you're feeling. And it's an easy way to start. It's also, again, against that stigma, it's just another accessible, like, okay, I don't really want anyone to know I'm doing this, but I am. Yeah. And then I think I
like that. It's like training wheels for like communication and
Yeah.
like connection with people.
Yeah.
It's like, let me try here first.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing on my mind that you just brought up, like if two people are willing enough to sit down and do this, just lean in.
That's good.
If it's like, if you're laughing, okay, laugh about it. Because guess what?
We did that.
Yeah. Like, and guess what? Like that may show up. And I would honor, hey, fear's at like a freaking 8 right now because I think this is the dumbest thing in the world, and like talk about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I think that's the point of it.
That's all.
Like just if it's giggly and laughy or if it's scary, talk about that during your check-in.
That's all.
Maybe that's all you talk about.
And just real quick, just because what I want to bring up is that's something, Aaron, you're actually really, really good at. We'll be in the car, we'll be joking around something. You'll say, "Hey man, how you been doing?" To one of those. On one of those scales. Yeah. I'll make a joke, kind of keep going. Then you'll stare at me in a really, really awkward way for a little bit and be like, no, I'm serious. How are you doing on this? Yeah. It's like, oh, you're serious. You're actually really asking me that. It's not just a surface level question of what's up. Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you provide that awkwardness until it happens. Awesome. So that's good.
Man.
That was a practice that we implemented at After Hours a while back. Like, ask how they're doing and then ask again. Give them an opportunity to really wrestle with that.
Because students were staring at me every week, and then I walked over to one of them and I said, "How was school today?" And they said, "Good." And then I said, "I'm not your parent. We're going to try that again. How was school today?"
Oh, come on.
And they were like,
so good.
They stared at me, and they said, "Math was really hard today." And they were like, I was like, "Why?" And then it turned into like an hour-long conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a kid at Walmart like a couple months ago, and he's like, "Aaron, it's so good to see you."
Yeah. And to that point, I think another problem that we see is like, well, like I wanted to do something, but I didn't know how. That person was crying, or they were obviously having a hard day, or maybe I didn't know they were having a hard day, but like I didn't know how to interact with them. It's another way how I've used and viewed the check-in. Just like, well, here's a process.
Yeah.
Just all you have to do is say it, and they just have to respond with a number, and maybe that's all they do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've watched people. I had a woman earlier this week. We trained the Boys and Girls Club, and I had a woman. She was one of their leaders, and she's like, "I love this, and I'm going to do it with my kids. I got to be honest with you. We were about to do the check-in. She's like, "I'm not doing this. I'll lead it, but I'm not going to." And I'm like, and I said, "You know what? I get that. Like, it can be tough. I really get that. And would you just go through it, and all you have to do is say the numbers?" And like, she only said the numbers, but it was like tearing up. And by the end of it, like, gave an affirmation statement and was just like, you could tell her whole posture's changing. And it's just like, I know the next time she'll lean in a little bit more. So that's what this is. It's just a practice.
And so what we're doing, and the value of this, right, is really you're giving somebody an outlet to release, right, what normally they're bottling up inside them, correct?
Absolutely.
So advice to a parent who's like, I know I need to do, my teen needs this, but they're not receiving it from me. Like, I tried, but they're like 1, 2, 4, 3. Can I go now?
Yeah.
My
first thing with a parent would be, and this is hard to say, like, you're not going to fix your kid. Mm-hmm. And we could probably sit here and argue about that.
I agree.
I think parents really want to. I know my parents want to support me every day, but we're different human beings. We're the same, and we're different. So it's and I can't say that because it's also hard because I'm not a parent. So I'm just coming from the kid's side. And I would just say, lean into it yourself. Mm-hmm. I think the reason I was able to get anywhere with my dad, or him to get anywhere with me, or my mom with me, was because they started to open up about their own stories, right? Like, it's going to be a lot harder as a parent to do this regardless. However, if you can start to crack open, maybe you do the check-in in front of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think modeling how to process emotions correctly really is part of the key.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's and leaning in, right? Like continue to try to do it with your kid. Continue to like do it. Like actually don't just give up one day.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also, say like do it with them, have them do it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they're still like, well, this is BS, but like I think it at least plants a seed. It may not be overnight, but it'll at least plant a seed for that kid to say, oh, wait a second, mom was angry today, and like I've never seen mom angry, or like I've seen her angry. Maybe you've seen her angry.
Yes.
She called my middle name, like she's angry,
Yeah.
but she didn't tell me why, and maybe that can start to be that kind of catalyst for like moving somewhere with it.
Yep.
Because we got to be honest, like there's gonna be pushback.
Yeah.
Especially a kid who's like defiant right now. He's acting out. Maybe they're getting into a lot of wrong stuff. Like, yeah, as a parent, you don't want to see your kid doing that. And you want to give them everything you can. I would say, yeah, just try to find that balance of connecting with them and being the authority figure. Like, you can't leave that behind, but connect with them. Open up a little bit to your kid.
I love this gives tools to be able to have those old dinner table conversations that don't exist anymore. Like just to slow down and share and put your cell phones away.
Yeah.
And I think for me, from the student side, even just listening in there, like a journal would be super helpful to be able to start to name some of these feelings. And then also empowering the kid to like ask the parent is mind blowing. Because when I thought parent, I was like, man, my parents would just like spank me until I did this, until I shared my feelings and told them what was going on.
Yeah.
And
out of 10.
yeah, but as I was sitting here listening and I'm asking the questions, or you're asking the questions, I'm going through it myself.
Right.
And I think that's super, super healthy.
Yeah.
And then for parents, like pro tips, this would be my natural thing, either to like laugh or start or joke or not, say something to fill the space, or to try and correct. There's that old skit, like it's not about the nail, where I would just, you respond,
best skit ever.
and then I want to fix you in that moment, and this becomes something completely different.
Right.
So
and I think that's just a good additional point. Going back to when we were talking about the way to check in, that's why we give neutral statements. Like we were like, hey, no, I see you. That's it. I don't care that you broke mom's, glass china right now. We'll deal with that later. But right now I see you for who you are. Right.
Yeah.
So these tools, you have a journal, right?
Journal.
So when people go to your website, depressiontoextinction.org, org, and that's the number 2, you're going to see access to a journal you can use. What other resources and things might they find as people check you out? What do they? Yeah,
it's great. A great question. It's all kind of intermingled and again focused in on this check-in and really just because like we want to do this really well.
Yeah.
Like there are people doing counseling and therapy but we want to do the peer-to-peer. Here's a simple tool really well. And so we have different ways that you can do a check-in. One, obviously we just taught you guys, and you can, if you're listening, go do it with anybody else. We have the Be Real Check-in Journal, which we actually use in our school program, which is kind of like our big, main thing is our Heal Kids school program, which we have it's basically a 2-hour workshop, and schools or after-school programs or organizations can, have us come in. We do the workshop, and we do a much deeper dive on each of the 10 emotions. We do a deeper dive on affirmations, and then we get into people into small groups and do the check-in and just practice it.
That's awesome.
So that's available. You can check in online. There's I think it's like the button on our in our homepage right there. You do check-in. Someone will email you back and respond just to acknowledge you and affirm you. And we're moving later down the line, not quite yet. We kind of promote and host small groups. So it'd be like us getting together for an hour a week. And you can actually use the journal, and it's cool. It kind of leads you through 10 weeks of check-ins. It's also flexible. You can do it any way you want. So yeah, there's a couple different avenues to kind of do that. Trying to think, is there anything else we have got going right now? But that's the main premise.
And people how do they get behind you? They donate online. There are other ways to get involved, or people are listening to this saying, I want to this is I get this organization. How do I get involved?
Yeah. So obviously, donate. I mean, all the money raised is going toward promoting the school program and getting us into schools and getting this out to more kids and teachers and parents. You can also, we have a whole sort of ambassador athlete system or program where we have, I think we're almost at 100 ambassador athletes right now all over the world, which is crazy.
That's great.
We had a guy down in Mexico bike for 24 hours, and he had a white van and had our logo all over it, and it was just so cool. So we have an ambassador athlete group. You can run races, and basically it's like you run, bike, swim, whatever race you're already doing, you just kind of you do a fundraiser, we throw you some swag, you get to kind of be you get to promote it. Within the ambassador athlete group, we have people actually going off and doing booths at races, at conferences, and they're kind of our biggest advocates. So that's another way to get involved.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's
like, is there anything else?
Merch.
Buy the merch. We have a fundraiser going on for the next couple weeks, depending on when you're listening to this. So there's stuff online. You can wear it. The biggest thing is just go start talking about it. Go talk about your feelings with people. That's that's my biggest thing.
Again, thank you, Luke.
Thank you so much.
So depressiontoextinction.org. You got to find them on social media. You need to be following all their stuff. You're going to hear more and more about this organization, so you might as well get on the bandwagon and start following now. So great stuff, and we got to have you back for
sure,
dude. I love this.
For some of our,
I miss my podcast days, man. Dude. Did this for 3 years.
Yeah, this is this is a deep topic, but we have a lot of podcasts that are pretty much meaningless, and and so
you can be the depth to this podcast.
Yeah,
Detective Pikachu was a bad movie.
That's the worst ever.
Yeah. We should done a check-in after watching that movie.
I definitely didn't listen to that episode. I'm sorry, guys.
Well,
it's okay.
That's.
Ask me about my shame level right now. Boy.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.